Let's bring Paul in and get his take on what's going on with the Sixers. And Paul, they win that game last night, and obviously it didn't look good there, but they might have a new look by the time they play the Miami Heat on Thursday night. How realistic is it in your mind that we have seen Ben Simmons wear a Sixers uniform for the last time?
It seems pretty realistic if you're following along with all the tweets at home. I'm sure not everyone is, but this is my job, so I do it. With all the reports of what Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania, Mark Stein, all the big guns are out right now tweeting about this deal that looks like it's got some serious momentum with the Sixers acquiring James Harden and Ben Simmons going to the Rockets. A lot of different rumors about what the parts could be and who could be going where. We've seen Tyrese Maxey's name thrown out. We've seen Matisse Thybulle's name thrown out. We've seen another iteration where P.J. Tucker could be coming to Philadelphia along with James Harden. But it seems like, given James Harden, if people that didn't see it last night, James Harden gave a pretty damning presser last night where he basically said that he gave everything he had to the city and that the team he is on right now is not good enough. So that clearly did not sit well with the Rockets locker room. They told him not to come to practice today, according to a report. So it seems like Houston is now very, very motivated to get this thing done. How motivated is Daryl Morey to make sure this is done within the next 24 hours? I don't know. But clearly the Rockets are trying to amp the pressure up, and they're trying to make a move. They're trying to get James Harden out of town.
Yeah, there's some reports that Harden has played his last game. In other words, that the Rockets are choosing to not play him now while they try to make a trade. So it looked imminent that he's going to move. My question for you is, Paul, how much did last night help the Sixers maybe push them towards, you know what? Ben Simmons, his offense just hasn't gotten to where we need it to be. We've tried it. We liked what we saw, but it's just not what we need. How much did maybe watching that last night, because that was frustrating to watch, maybe push them right back into this Harden road that maybe they weren't down initially?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've always been in on Harden, meaning I think that they've been in contact with the Rockets. I think that it's been known that Daryl Morey has interest, and of course he does. I mean, you don't have to cross a lot of, connect a lot of dots to connect Daryl Morey to James Harden and wanting him to get here. That was basically the rumor as soon as Morey got the job here, was that he was going to go get Harden. So it just, you don't have to go too far to connect that. But I'm not going to say that it was one game. I hear what you're saying. Like, maybe this is, to me, this is more of a culmination of a lot of things. I think it's a culmination of, throughout these games that Ben Simmons looks, I hate to say it, but offensively he looks very similar. He doesn't look any different than he did last year. I still think he's got room for potential and room for growth. But when you see Joel Embiid and what he did last night and how ridiculous that performance was, how good he was in the third quarter, I can't even say good because that just is totally underselling it. He was ridiculous. In the third quarter and in overtime, he completely willed that team to a win. They had no business winning that game. They only won it because he was so unbelievable. So I think part of it, too, could be, you see Joel Embiid have that kind of game and have that kind of performance and just put the team on his back. And, you also hear him talk post-game and how many times he says the word championship and just his demeanor and where he is and just, almost the look in his eye. Quite frankly, he wants it right now, and he might not be in a better position than right now to get it. I mean, he's still only 26 years old, but he's a big man. He's had an injury history. He's not getting any younger. So, yeah, to an extent, I think it's a culmination of maybe we just need to strike while the iron is hot, because Joel Embiid is the greatest version of himself right now, and that is scary. You add a James Harden to that mix, and who knows what the potential is there.
You say the look in his eye. I said his facial expressions last night, specifically that third quarter. I mean, he was all business. But I think we can all agree that Matisse Thybulle wouldn't be the difference in wanting to pull the trigger. But is Tyrese Maxey?
No.
So for me, I was going to say, I hate to say it, and you guys know, I mean, I think every single time I've come on, I've just done nothing but gush over Tyrese Maxey. But if that's the difference between you getting James Harden and you not getting James Harden, no, you have to include Tyrese Maxey. He's 20 years old. He's got a lot of potential. but we're talking about the Sixers potentially becoming a championship contender for, at the very least, the next 2 years. And if James Harden picks up his third-year player option for 3 years, you are a legitimate championship contender. I mean, just think about that. I mean, are you willing to give that potential up to maybe Maxey being the guy who, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just, to me, the certainty of how great Harden is and how great Embiid are right now supersedes that. With that said, I'm struggling if the Sixers and the Nets are the two teams that are in it, right? And I've seen like the Nets offers basically all of their first round picks and a bunch of pick swaps. Is that better than any package you could possibly get for the Sixers that include Ben Simmons? And I don't think it is. To have a tangible asset in Ben Simmons, plus whatever if it's Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle and let's say a first round pick, to me that is a better package than a bunch of first round picks. You don't know what you're getting. At least with Simmons, you are getting a tangible player that you believe, that I believe, quite frankly, I still think that you can build a team around. I think that you need to put the right pieces around him. But I think, he's only 24 years old. He's locked up for 5 years. So to me, Maxey is not a deal breaker, but I'm certainly not trying to give him up. So, not a deal breaker, but I'm reluctant to do it, but I would do it.
Here's another tough question then, Paul. Bradley Beal is potentially on the move at some point. It might not be as fast as Harden. Like, they look like they want to get rid of Harden by the end of this conversation. Beal might be available, but you might have to wait. If you're Morey and you have a chance to get Harden, do you jump on it, or do you try to maybe battle with more teams and get Beal?
See, it's so hard because first of all, you can't go wrong with either of those guys. I mean, these are arguably the first and second best scorers in the entire NBA right now when you're talking about Harden and Beal. So either guy makes the Sixers better, and again, I believe would make them a championship contender. The tricky thing with Beal would be, to me, if you're going to – again, I would think – I don't know this, I don't have any inside knowledge of it, but I would imagine that Ben Simmons would be a lot more appealing to the Rockets than to the Wizards, just given the fit of the roster. Now, that's not to say that Ben Simmons couldn't be a fit when you look at some of their longer-term pieces with the Rui Hachimura, Denny Avila. Like, those guys are kind of like, they're bigger players, but they're perimeter players that can hit outside shots. Thomas Bryant, Davis Bertans is now there for a few years. So, yeah, theoretically, Ben Simmons could fit. They are also still going to have to pay Russell Westbrook for a couple more years at a lot of money. So that fit also seems, I mean, to put it mildly, not great. So that would be my fear with the Wizards, is that I don't know that they would have as much interest in Ben Simmons as the Rockets would. So to me, I guess if you're looking at it from the perspective of James Harden is here right now, he could get traded, like you said, by the time while we're talking right now, it could go down. Or do you want to wait it out with Bradley Beal on the thought that the Wizards might trade him? I think you almost have to take the sure thing. So if James Harden is there now and can be had for Ben Simmons, I'm pulling the trigger for James Harden.
When watching Ben Simmons last night, you personally, what was going through your mind? Because I've been defending him so much, and look, I value growth and developing, and we can see his skill set, but last night was seriously a breaking point for me, and it's not just because of last game. It was almost like a bunch of different games all packaged up, and then I've just roared it all out today. But, like, what went through your mind specifically when watching that?
It was tough. Because I'm with you. I'm a guy who's defended Ben Simmons a lot, and I still think he has unbelievable potential. I think this is why the Houston Rockets want him for James Harden, because he is so valuable. But yeah, just offensively, like I alluded to earlier, just the lack of growth. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. I get for Sixers fans why it's frustrating. I get why maybe for the organization it could be frustrating at times. And I still think that if this all falls through and you don't get James Harden, maybe there's still potential at some point for Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid to fully realize this thing. It seems like that's the time's running out on that. But yeah, when I'm watching it, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see him do the same thing, to see him, get to the middle of the floor, get to like the free throw area and pick up his dribble and not have anywhere to go, or there was the one play where literally they were giving him a free throw shot at the line, and he was like looking around for someone to pass it to. It's just the reluctance to face the basket, the reluctance to get downhill and score and shoot. It's frustrating, and the more you watch it, the more it's fair to wonder, will this ever work with Joel Embiid? And if you have an opportunity again, and I think that adds to the frustration, right, is the fact that James Harden could be available and Joel Embiid is playing great, and you're seeing Ben Simmons still make the same mistakes. And so I think frustration is the word, and in a way, like, I almost feel bad for the guy because I think he has grown, and I think he has gotten better in other areas, but just that area of his game, the expansion of his game and the unwillingness to shoot will ultimately be why I think the Sixers are willing to move on.
By the way, the latest from Mark Stein that says the Sixers are trying to muster up other assets to offer Houston in an effort to try to keep Maxey. So, look, it appears that the Sixers are going through the filing cabinet, and they are looking for every single thing they can throw that way. And it's imminent that Harden could be here. The question would be, if you don't make the trade to Harden, he goes to the Nets. A Nets team with Harden, Durant, and possibly Kyrie, I mean, you almost have to make this trade so they don't.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, too. You want to keep him out of the hands of the other Eastern Conference teams. I mean, what if the Miami Heat start getting a little frisky and Pat Riley says, hey, maybe I can get in this, and the Heat get engaged? So, I mean, yeah, that's also a big part of it, is you don't want, Joel Embiid going up against James Harden in a playoff scenario. So I do think that's certainly a pretty big part of it. It's so – I feel like all these pieces are lining up where it almost has to happen now because Ben Simmons' name is out there.
Yeah.
And as much as it was out there before and as much as Daryl Morey came out and said, no, we're not trading him, now we're at a point – I wouldn't say we're completely at a point of no return, but we're on the cusp of that, I think.
I'll ask you then, Paul. I mean, you were there last night. It's kind of hard, I guess, to get a feel because you can't go in the locker room and you can't kind of get behind the scenes. But did it feel like something was imminent, or like when you see all this stuff happening today, is it like, this is getting real?
No, for me, it was definitely today of it feeling. I mean, I'll say this. Last night when I saw Harden's presser, that to me was very alarming and signaled to me, okay, this could be happening very soon, because you can't say stuff like, I mean, he basically said goodbye to the Houston media. I mean, that's what it felt like, at least. So when that happened, that got my head churning a little bit. But I would say, as far as the team goes, I think there was just so much focus on how great Embiid played, and then also just on, the promise of some of these young guys that have had to step into the situation. And there was still a lot of talk about the COVID situation and the contact tracing and what's kind of going on there with the Sixers. So there's just a lot happening right now. So I don't think nothing felt imminent from the Sixers standpoint, to be sure. Nothing felt even, it didn't feel anything like that. It was mostly, like I said, the Harden thing last night. That felt like a tipping point, perhaps, and then to see all these reports today, yeah, it's a little bit. I don't want to say shocking, but it's a little bit jarring to kind of see this just become very real, as you put it.
Real quick, your gut feeling says, will Ben Simmons be traded?
I have a feeling that James Harden might be a Sixer, and that in order to make that happen, Ben Simmons would have to not be a Sixer. So.
Well, there you go. He kind of took a backwards way
what
to
was
get
that?
there.
I'm a little confused. That's like a premature tweet almost.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not. Listen, I learned lessons. I'm not going to commit to anything after that debacle last night.
It's just hard to tweet out what you said there. That's all.
It is.
Paul Hudrick covers the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN.com. At Paul Hudrick, inside the Sixers. They play tomorrow against the Heat. Will they have James Harden for that game? Will they have Ben Simmons? Well, keep it locked and go to our website, 97.3 ESPN.com. All right, Paul, thanks, man.
You got it, Mike.
All right, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.